Here's the uncomfortable question most families avoid. Does your spending actually reflect what you say matters most? You say family is a top priority, but you haven't taken vacation together in 3 years because money is tight. You say faith is foundational, but you're spending more on streaming services than you're giving to your church. You say your marriage is sacred, but the last time you invested in a date night, you can't even remember. Here's the hard truth. Your bank statement is a more honest reflection of your values than your mission statement. And for most families, there's a massive gap between what they say matters and where their money actually goes. Today, we're closing that gap. I'm going to show you how to build a budget that doesn't just manage your money, it aligns your spending with your deepest values. A budget that funds your mission instead of undermining it. This isn't about deprivation, it's about intention. Hello, I'm Michael Loffmiller. This is Fulfillment Frameworks. Let's build a budget with meaning. If you're new here, welcome. I'm genuinely glad that you're here. I'm a husband and father, probably a lot like you. I have 5 kids at home, a wife that I absolutely adore, and a life that's been anything but predictable. You see, over the past decade, I've had to discover through success, through spectacular failures, through faith and family chaos, a set of frameworks for living that actually hold up under pressure. Systems that provide for my family, create genuine meaning, and prevent total burnout. You see, we just spent several years overseas doing mission work with our whole family. It was an incredible experience, stretching, exhausting, life-changing, for sure. But now we're back. We're rebuilding from scratch, buying a house, establishing new rhythms, starting fresh. Everything we're doing now, every framework I'm teaching, we're testing right now in real time. Here's my mission with this podcast. I want to help you design a deeply fulfilling life that doesn't leave you ragged, burnt out, or ironically, sacrificing the very people you're working to serve. Because here's the tragic paradox. Most of us are working ourselves to death for the people that we never get to see. We're building financial security while eroding relational intimacy. We're providing everything except presence. But that ends here and that ends now. So let me tell you a little story about some financial conversations and see if they ring true. You might save your marriage. Okay, maybe you've just spent another month has gone by, all right, and you and your spouse have somehow spent more than you made again, despite both of you working hard and making what should have been enough income. No, I get it. Things happen. Lifestyle inflation, choices, things going on autopilot. Think about it. All right, but you sit down at the kitchen table with your bank statements and your spouse, and you see worry all over their face. We need to talk about money, they said. And then you immediately get defensive. Or maybe it's the other way around. I'm working as hard as I can. What do you want me to do? But that's not what either one of you are saying. You're not attacking. One of you are just pointing out a pattern that neither one of you had wanted to face. That your spending had zero connection to your stated values. You'd probably say things like, family time is top priority. But when you looked at the actual numbers, you spent hundreds of dollars on things that stole family time. Streaming services that you hardly watch, subscription boxes, convenience purchases that just made the house more cluttered instead of helping with connection. Or you might say things like, we want to be generous and serve others. But your giving was sporadic, inconsistent, and basically was what was ever left over was given, which usually meant nothing. Or you could say things like, our marriage is the foundation of this family. But you hadn't invested in a date night in months. We were too busy, which might be true from time to time, but if it's consistent, it really means you hadn't prioritized it financially or with time. And so then what hits hardest? That you are unconsciously funding a life that you don't even want. Every dollar spent on autopilot is a dollar that couldn't be spent on your mission. Every impulse purchase was an investment in distraction instead of fulfillment. So make a decision. All right. Say you're going to build a budget. That's what we're going to do here today. All right. but not the kind of budget that just tracks spending. You need to build a budget that builds a value-based, all right, a value-based budget. Okay. It starts with your mission. All right. And you work backwards with your money. All right. So if you have not listened to the family mission statement episode, I suggest you pause now and go listen to that, because these two tie in together. It will change everything. After about 3 months, you'll probably find margin in your finances for the first time in years. Maybe within 6 months, you might consistently be giving, or consistently going on dates, or doing family experiences that actually mattered. Okay. You're not going to be making more money. You're going to just be spending what money you already make with intention. And that intention, that is what's going to turn your budget from a restrictive spreadsheet, like you're in a straitjacket, into a funding mechanism for the life that you actually want. All right. So how do we even make a budget? All right. Because most budgets fail since they start in the wrong place. They start with expenses, rent, utilities, groceries, gas, so on and so forth, and try to squeeze everything else into what's left over. But a values-based budget starts with the mission. So here's the framework. Okay. Step 1, define your financial values. Before you touch a spreadsheet, sit down with your spouse or by yourself if you're single and answer these questions. What do we want our money to accomplish? Not what society says, not what your parents model, good or bad. All right. Doesn't matter. We're not caring what they think. What do you want your money to do for your family? For us, we want to fund our faith through consistent giving. We want to protect our marriage with regular date nights. Build family memories through intentional experiences. That could be something as small as getting some fishing stuff together and going fishing at a lake or a pond. It doesn't have to be something big. Okay. We can create margin for generosity and spontaneous service. And then also, probably third most important, is invest in our kids' growth and education. Since we homeschool our kids, sometimes they get really interested in a certain topic, like some are starting to become interested in programming and robotics. Well, you got to have margin to be able to invest in those things. Okay. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Write down your top 5 to 7 financial values. But be specific. Okay. What are we currently? Now, the next question is, what are we currently spending money on that doesn't serve those values? Kind of like when we're looking at our time calendar, same kind of thought process. Where are we spending money instead of spending time that doesn't serve our values that we just listed? That's the next question. So you got to think about it. And this is the uncomfortable part. So let's pull up like the last 3 months of bank statements and go line by line. Okay. Maybe it's credit card statements, whatever. However you track your spending, pull up 3 months of those statements and let's go line by line. Every transaction either moves you forward towards your goals or away from them. All right. Most families discover they're unconsciously funding distraction, convenience, and stuff they don't even remember buying. So step 2. Don't know which way I should do that. Maybe I'll do it that way. Whatever. It's the next step. Okay. Build your missions first budget categories. Now we're going to restructure your budget around your mission. So traditional budgets, can't speak. Can't do the 2, can't speak. Traditional budgets look like this. You have fixed expenses first, which makes sense because you know what those are. Variable expenses, groceries, gas, entertainment. You have an idea that those kind of fluctuate. Then savings and giving, if there's anything left over. But that's backwards. Okay, here's how value-based budgeting works. Okay, and I'm going to give some percentages, all right? But adjust. Remember, this is frameworks, not telling you X, Y, Z, just some general thoughts that you can then mold to fit your specific circumstance. Okay, and this is very similar to what we do. Again, it molds and changes over time. So take that what you will so you can adjust for your family. So tier 1, these are mission critical. So that's like the first 10 to 15%. This is absolutely non-negotiable. Before anything else gets funded, these categories get filled. So for us, it is giving and tithing. If faith is a core, this comes first, not last. Marriage investment, date nights, weekend getaways, counseling if needed. And then family experiences, the things that build memories and connections. So that's like the first 10 to 15%. Maybe you want a 20%. That's fine. Just there's only so much budget, so you gotta make sure everything lines up. But whatever you deem mission critical, it gets funded first, and everything else is just maybes. All right, tier 2. Well, with the exception tier 2, because these are kind of like you get in trouble with the government if you don't pay these. Life foundations, that's tier 2, but 50 to 60%. Okay, I try to stick with 50%. And I try to have my mission critical 15%. These are necessary, but you can often reduce them. So housing. All right. So don't be keeping up with the Joneses and think every 5 to 8 years you need a bigger house or whatever. Just keep the one you got. It's perfectly fine. All right. Don't worry. Who cares about what other people are doing? If they're always struggling with their finances and talking about making ends meet is hard and stuff, then why do you want that? Right? Like just stay at the house you have, and live a better life. Utilities. Okay, you can be smart about, when light bulbs go out, if you haven't already, get LED replacements. Now, it's not necessarily the best to just replace good bulbs with LED because it takes like 10 years for them to pay off, but I digress. I'm just giving some options. Be careful how you run your HVAC. If you always set it at 68, maybe for a few days it's 69, then a few days it's 70, and then a few days you work it up to like 73. Because, guys, even in the summer, you don't really need it below 78. That's what my family did. We started at 70, and over time we worked up. So now our AC is at 78 all the time. In the wintertime, that's the only time it goes lower, and it's like 72. Okay. But we've worked at this over time. So that helps your utilities. Your water usage, there's different ways of just being conscious about that. But again, I digress too much. Groceries. All right. Do you really need that name brand, whatever? Do you really need to go shop at Whole Foods or Publix or one of the higher end markets? Now, if you can't get the same type of food anywhere else, sure, I understand. I have some diet restrictions that I have to have certain types of food for my intestines. And so sometimes that means you've got to go somewhere different. But even with my medical condition, I've still found out how to get the vast majority of my food from Walmart, Kroger's, Aldi, HB, some of these larger chain, lower cost places. And when you look at the ingredients, it's just as good quality. Okay, so just be mindful of that and think about it. Next, transportation. Again, sort of like the housing. Every few years, do you really need to upgrade and get a new car? Like if your old one's working just fine, then just drive it into the ground. You can plot it out, and there is a value of the car and how much it costs to fix it graph that eventually it flips over and it costs more than really the car's worth. But that takes a long time. It's not every 3 to 5 years. And so just think about that. Do you really want to have a $500 payment for a car forever? Do it for 3 to 5 years, and then don't have a car payment for 10 years unless your car literally breaks down and doesn't work. That's 10 years of $500 a month that you're not paying. It just seems obvious. And then insurance. All right. You may be thinking, oh my gosh, you are a dad if you are talking about insurance. Yes. Yes, I am both a dad and talking about insurance. So insurance, a lot of people, and this goes for any of your services, any of your TV services, anything like that. If you have somebody that does the lawn or washes cars, whatever you may be paying regularly, it all take this mindset. Okay, insurance is a foundation, but other ones are quality of life, but they're all similar in how you should think about it. Okay, every year when house insurance comes up, I look around, I do some inspections or comparisons rather, to see, am I still getting the best rate with these people? Every 6 months, I do the same thing with car insurance. Am I still getting the best rate? Because oftentimes what I found by shopping around, I get better discounts than getting the loyalty discount from, Geico or Farmers or whoever, State Farm, whoever it is. Because those are usually like a 10% discount. But I remember one year I switched from, I forget who it was originally, but I switched to Farmers Insurance for the house and almost cut same insurance, same, like I looked at the everything side by side. It was everything. And it was almost 50% less. So point is trying to make, okay, long-winded, I know. Shop around. Okay. Tier 3. So for tier 1 is 15, tier 2 is 50. That's what, 65. We got 3 more. So tier 3 quality of life is probably about 15%. These make life better, but they're not mission critical. So if you need to cut them, you cut them. All right. Dining out within reason. Now, this isn't the same as date nights. This is just like going out with friends, going out with the family. All right. Within reason. Okay. Just for health's sake, you don't need to be doing it like 3 times a week. All right. It's not good for you. All right. Definitely not good for your budget. Entertainment doesn't always have to be something super expensive. Hobbies doesn't have to be super expensive hobbies. The Facebook Marketplace and Goodwill and other places, you can find a lot of things for hobbies other people are done with for pretty cheap. Okay. And then also your personal spending money. So this is how we have it. We have a section for personal spending money, including the kids. That's like, okay, what do they need? What do we want? Whatever. And we can spend within that. Tier 4, future preparation. So this is 10 to 15%. It kind of fluctuates a little bit. But tier 4, future preparations. We have emergency fund. The reason it fluctuates is that once our emergency fund gets filled, then we put less in, because we still want it to be building up to a certain point, but then we start moving that somewhere else. We have retirement. That can vary. Usually we max out everything through our jobs, and so we don't have to do that once it comes in to our bank account. But there has been times where we've added even more to different retirement savings. And then, of course, kids' education savings. That's where a lot of our future preparation goes now. Then tier 5 is literally everything else. So 5 to 10% max. So this is just like your margin, your buffer, your breathing room. The way I do my budget is I have all the income at top, and I have the expenses laid out down below. I have what's budgeted, what we actually spend a month, and then the difference. Okay. And so then that difference carries over to the next month. And so then I sum up everything that I've budgeted, and I subtract that from the initial income. And I have this little line that says left to be budgeted. Okay. And I always that's where I keep my everything else. I want that left to be budgeted line around 10% of the income. Maybe a little less, but that's where my everything else comes in, because then if something happens, like, oh man, something happened to the car, I gotta get the car fixed. All right, well, that puts me over that budgeted line item. That's okay. I can just go and get more from the margin, and it's not like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna pay the bills? Okay. So those are the step 2. Okay, your categories. You're just building your categories. You're not building out your line items. I'm just giving you examples of how we do it. So a quick recap, because I know I ramble a little bit. So tier 1, mission critical things, non-negotiable. Tier 2, life foundations, necessary. You get in trouble with the government or other people if you don't pay these. So pretty much necessary. Tier 3, quality of life. They make life better, but not critical. You can cut them out completely or just reduce them down. Tier 4, future preparations. All right, emergency fund, retirement, kids' education, things like that. Tier 5, everything else. Step trace 3, the alignment audit. So now comes the hard work, making your actual spending match your stated values. So let's look at those statements again. For every recurring expense asked, does this serve our mission? If yes, keep it. You might even actually want to increase it. If no, either cut it out or reduce it completely. And here's what it looked like for us at one point in time. So we cut streaming services that we barely used. That's like $35 a month. Subscription boxes we forgot about. Yeah, that was like another $30-$40. Impulse convenience purchases. Man, that was like $200 a month. And then eating out from exhaustion instead of planning. Oh my goodness. With our family, that was easy, like $350 or more. Instead, we invested in monthly date night budget, around $100. Family experience fund. Now, this could be anything. Again, go back to this simple fishing, hunting, going to the beach for a while. It doesn't matter. It's family experience fund. And then we've always had this, but just to highlight it, we invested in consistent giving, which is 10% of our income. And then marriage enrichment resources, about $30 a month. So it could be books, seminars, whatever. Sometimes we just let that stack up and then we have something more we want later. So it's the same income, but a radically different life, a radically like distribution of that income. And so then step forward, quattro, automate your values. So here's the secret to this, to making this sustainable. If I could speak, it'd be great. Automate everything that's mission critical. And take a sip of my chai while you think about that. Yes, let me say it again. Automate everything that is mission critical. So we set up automatic transfers on payday. Okay, so giving goes out first. All right, we have things set aside like the marriage fund, family experience, savings. Okay, we have all these things put out different ways before we even see the money. And then what actually helps, really, I know most people hate it, but having your budget on a piece of paper, spreadsheet on the computer, app on your phone, something where you're not looking at your bank statement helps tremendously. I mean, I know a lot of people at one time really like to pull out the cash and put in the envelopes thing, which it works. It can be helpful, but if you are like me and you kind of misplace things, it might be a little more helpful to have like it on your phone. That's what I do. So I just look at my phone and I see, okay, we have this budget in. Is it over our budget, our income? No. Okay, cool. So now we just got to stick to this budget. Otherwise, like me personally, I'm going to have like 20 accounts to automatically move the money to, because if I look there, I'm like, oh, I have X amount of money, then I'm going to completely forget about the budget and I'm going to have those impulse buys. That's actually the thing that really helped with the impulse buys, was that I stopped looking at the bank account to see, did we have anything available? I just looked at the budget. Okay. So some things do need to automatically go to different accounts, like savings account, retirement accounts. If you're given somewhere, have that go ahead and get sent off. But then other things like family experience, marriage fund, make sure you have that at the top of your list for your budget. Okay. Because when it gets automated, it gets protected. Like you don't even think about it. It's like first month comes, middle of the month comes. All you may see that hit your bank account when you finally look at it is things that are not mission critical. And so you go from there. Pretty much how it works if you didn't get it. So basically, if you wait until the end of the month to fund your values, there's not going to be anything left. But if you fund your mission first, you'll find a way to make the rest work. Step 5, review and adjust monthly. There's always going to be this step. It was coming. So during your weekly planning session from episode 4, is it episode 4? I think so. Spend 10 minutes once a month reviewing your budget. Are we staying on track? What worked well this month? What needs adjustment? Are there new expenses that need to be incorporated? Again, as with all these frameworks, this isn't about perfection. It's about direction. Right? Some months you'll overspend. Some months, unexpected expenses will blow up your plan. But that's just life. It's also why we try to incorporate as much margins and that little safety net as possible. But when your budget is anchored to your values, you can recover quickly and get back on mission. Now, a few common objections that I hear, not just personally, but whenever the subject comes up in a variety of places. Objection numero uno: we don't make enough money for this to work. Values-based budgeting works at every income level. In fact, it's more important when money is tight. Because it's tight, you have to make sure you're focused on your values. And if you notice, I didn't say put X dollars here. I'd say percentages. Percentages work at any dollar value. Okay? Now, you may have to do more, like 60, 65% on life foundations, because if you don't, you kind of get in trouble with people and governments and stuff, not paying utilities and not paying your rent and whatnot. But it's a percentage. You just change that percentage. It'll be okay. If you have limited resources, you have to be intentional. I learned this long ago as I was getting ready to go off to college, and then in college, I had to track every penny. Nowadays, what I do is I usually just round it to the nearest quarter or nearest dollar. I round up so that there's a little bit of margin baked in. But in college, I was every penny, because I was like, money was that tough. Like, I need to know every penny, where it's going. Okay. And maybe you have to do that for a time. It's okay. It's not going to kill you. It's actually going to help you. You know, and for my case, every penny had to count. It didn't kill me, but it helped. But as my life's gone on, and I'm not a poor college kid and got married to an ER nurse working as an engineer, and, numbers changed, the principles don't change. The framework works whether you make $40,000 a year or $400,000 a year. Okay. But now moving on. Objection 2: my spouse and I can't agree on financial priorities. All right. Well, if that's the case, go back, listen to our family mission statement episode, and start there, because your budget should fund your mission. Okay. Not that you have different priorities, but your mission. So if you don't have the same mission, you need to work on that same mission. So go listen to our family mission statement episode and work on that first. Okay. Because the simple matter is, if you can't agree on a budget, then you probably don't have a clear mission yet. Okay. That's okay. Just go do that work, then come and do the budget. All right. It just becomes a natural extension, okay, of what you've already agreed upon. Objection 3: just feel restricted and joyless. Yeah, they can, only if you build them wrong. A budget that starts with deprivation is joyless, but a budget that starts with what do we want our money to accomplish is liberating. So you're not thinking about rent and gas and utilities and groceries and all these things, and then whatever's left over at the end, you're like, that's all I have to like live off of, to go do fun things. These other things were just life maintenance. That doesn't seem like a lot. I know I used to do that when I was in college. I had to do what was only necessary, and then whatever's left over is what I got to do fun extra things with. But as soon as I started flipping things around, it completely changed everything. Okay. You're not restricting yourself. You're actually funding your freedom. I think I've said in another episode, but there's a quote that talks about, I think it's C.S. Lewis talks about a fish. A fish could live on land. Some fish breathe air, like a dolphin or something. I guess they're not fish. Those are mammals. But I digress. Point is, this water-based animal could live on land, but is it really free? If you're saying, oh, this, budgets are restrictive, but if a water-based animal, fish, dolphin, whatever, stays in the water, then it can live its best life. Like those restrictions give it the opportunity to be the best it can possible. So not all restrictions are bad. Like these restrictions, these guardrails, can actually help us figure out how we can live the best possible way. So don't think of it as restriction, because unrestricted, unfettered freedom sometimes it's not freedom at all, because then you get paralyzed by choice. You can pick things that aren't good for you, and it's a weird thing to say coming from America, but sometimes complete and utter freedom is bad because if you think about like grains of sand, when you pour sand out, they have complete freedom to go wherever. And what happens? You have this chaotic mess right in front of you. Okay. You got to take what you have and shape it. You got to give it a few rules to be built up. Okay. So do you want chaos or do you want structure? That's the way I think about it. I want structure, so I put a few rules in place that give me structure that ultimately give me the freedom I want. All right, last objection. Objection 4. We've tried budgeting before and it never sticks. That's fine. That's a valid objection. I heard this from Dave Ramsey, and I know a lot of people have very polarizing, visceral reaction to Dave Ramsey. But one thing he said that I think is true, and I think a lot of people would agree with, the best budget in the world is the one that you keep. And that's the point here. If you've tried budgeting before and it didn't, I cannot speak, and it did not stick, it's because you're using someone else's system instead of building one around your values. Okay. It doesn't matter. It could be something simple like on a piece of paper. It could be this really fancy spreadsheet. It could be an app. It doesn't matter. Okay. It doesn't matter what it is. It just needs to work for you and your values. All right. Most cookie cutter budgets fail. That's why these budgeting apps out there that are all cookie cutters, like a lot of them, people just roll off of after a few months because it fails and they stop using it, stop working. All right. But mission-driven budgets, they actually succeed. Okay. So now comes the time for some reflection questions. All right. So I'm going to read them off. But as I read them off, after each one, just pause and think about it. Maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes. Whatever you need, think about it, and then play the next one. Okay, so question 1. If I pulled up, you ask yourself, need some more chai, can't get some oxygen. Did you know yawning is actually like your brain's response to not having enough oxygen? Just a little quick tidbit from your dad there. Question 1. If I pulled up my last 3 months of bank statements right now, what would they reveal about my actual priorities? Be honest. What story does your spending tell? Question 2. What's one thing I'm currently spending money on that doesn't serve my family's mission? Just one. Identify it, write it down. What's one thing I wish I was investing in but keep saying I can't afford? Write it down. Question 4. If I could only fund 3 financial priorities this year, what would they be? And this gives you your clarity right here. Those 3 things should be tier 1 in your budget. Okay. So here's our assignment for this week. Okay. Here's the work for our lives that we gotta do this week. Day 1, define your top financial values. Remember, we said it's like 5 to 7. Write them down. Discuss them with your spouse if you're married. Okay. Next couple of days, pull up your last 3 months of bank statements and go line by line. Highlight everything that doesn't align with your stated values. Day 4, build your mission first budget using the framework. All right. Tier 1, mission critical. This should be 10 to 15%. Again, adjust the percentages as needed. Tier 2, life foundations, 50 to 60%. Tier 3, quality of life, 15 to 20%. Tier 4, future preparations, 10 to 15%. And Tier 5, margin, 5 to 10%. Okay. Day 5, set up one automatic transfer that funds a mission critical value. Just one. Just start there. Day 6 to 7. Live with your new budget structure. Track what feels right and what needs adjustment. So you're going to start on like day 6 or 7, but live with it for like 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and just see how it feels. Okay. Remember, your first budget is not going to be perfect at all, but it will be intentional, and intention is where transformation begins. So we'll go from where you are to a little bit better, and then a little bit better, and you'll just adjust your budget over time. My goodness, I think I changed budgets 3 to 4 times a year because things change, life changes. Okay. And so now we have our faith integration. There's a reason Jesus talked about money more than almost any other topic. Not because God needs your money, but because how you handle money reveals what you truly trust. In Matthew, Jesus says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Your spending is a spiritual indicator. It shows you what you believe about provision, about security, and about God's faithfulness. When you build a values based budget, you're not just managing finances, you're aligning your treasure with your heart. You're saying, God, I trust you enough to prioritize mission over comfort. I trust you enough to give first instead of last. I trust you enough to fund what matters instead of hoarding what doesn't. And here's what I've experienced firsthand. When you honor God with your finances, He honors your faithfulness with provision, peace, and clarity that you can't manufacture on your own. That's not prosperity gospel. That's just biblical stewardship. And it works. So that's today's episode, guys. Money with meaning, budgeting that aligns with values. So here's what we covered. Why most budgets fail. Okay, they start with expenses instead of mission. How to build a value-based budget in 5 easy steps. Common objections and real answers. And spiritual foundation for financial stewardship. So remember your assignment. Define your values, run the audit, build your mission first budget. But before you go, a few quick next steps if you have not already done them. Take the fulfillment assessment. Okay, link will be in the show notes. It's a free quiz. It will show you where you're probably lacking and where you need to kind of focus to be more fulfilled. We also have links to the fulfillment planner. Okay, that's going to help you with your mission critical things and your budget. You can do everything in there like a planner, but for our frameworks that we've been discussing. And then last but not least, link to join the Discord community where we're trying to build a community of folks that are like-minded, that are saying we don't care what others do. We're trying to figure out what works for our family, what's best for our family, and build towards that, where we can then come alongside and encourage one another and build one another up and just provide that, community and support for when other people think we're crazy for what we're doing. All right. In there, you can share your budget wins, ask questions, get support from other people. Yeah. And last but not least, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Share this episode with your spouse because financial alignment works the best when you're both committed. And remember our core principle. This isn't about doing more. It's about building the right frameworks. When you align your money with your mission, you're not just managing finances, you're funding fulfillment. I'm Michael Loffmiller. Thank you for building with me. I'll see you in the next episode.